What's up? Welcome back to the pod. Today, RIP, the legendary Bill Walton passed away at the age of 71. Feel like he had a lot more life to live. It's sad news today. But Blazers legend, obviously, arguably the best Blazer ever, brought a championship to Portland. Basically, when I think of him, I never obviously really got the chance to watch him play, but from what I've heard, probably was kind of like the Jokic of the 70s. Could dominate the paint, maybe even a little bit better defensively, could block shots, great outlet passer, could run the break at his size, ran basket to basket. Uh, that would be great to have a player like that currently on the Blazers, not to turn this immediately around into what the Blazers should be doing. But we were just thinking about that championship team. Guys like Maurice Lucas, Dave Twardzik, Lionel Hollins, Bobby Gross, and what those guys did. A lot of them coming from the ABA. A lot of them in their first or second year on the Blazers. Bill Walton, I think, was on his third. So, Riley, what do you think about that team? And you can relate it to the current team if you want to.
Yeah, when I was looking at the roster and kind of thinking about what it took to finally get over the hump and get a championship, I saw a lot of development work being done. Bill Walton obviously had some injuries when he first came in, foot injuries persistently for about 3 years. Instead of focusing on basketball, he was focusing on like civil rights issues while he got healed up, and that was, a big part of his legacy. So shout out to his legacy on that end too. He was seemed like an awesome guy all around. But yeah, I mean, it took him a few years to get to a point where he was ready to lead a team to a championship. He had to get over some health issues. He had to continue growing and maturing a little bit. And that's what I'm hoping to see this offseason from our Blazers, our young Blazers, is just some serious development. I last night I was thinking before the Bill Walton news came out, I was just thinking about this team, and I was thinking about how I really hope that pretty soon we start hearing about and seeing video and seeing picture and social media posts about them putting in some serious work this offseason, because that's what it's going to take. Based on what we saw last year, I don't have a ton of excitement about what we gave up to get Scoot, to be honest. That might not be the popular opinion on the podcast, but I speak for myself. Um, and I really want to see him putting up that Kobe work ethic, that Steph Curry work ethic of, like, I'm not going to go home until I make 30 shots from every spot on the floor. That's what we need to see, not just from him, but also from Shaden and from a lot of these young guys. In order to know what we have to see them, and we have to see them continue to improve. And I want to see, Aiton in there putting in work, show that he's fully bought in, because if he's not, we need to know so that we can move on. So if we're going to be development focused, if we're going to be draft focused, which I think we should be at this point in time, the guys have to put in the work. And I'm hoping to see some serious development this season so that next season looks nothing like last year did.
Yeah, I mean, you go in and you can still look at the highlights specifically of like the championship series. Clips from that series aren't as hard to find as like normal Bill Walton clips, which are still out there. You can totally find them. But just what he was a force. He was a force, like you said, on the boards, passing, could score. He had it all. There's a reason that he's the only MVP in Blazers history, right? And it just goes to show when you have top of the line talent, things can fall into place. The Blazers
Pretty
historically,
quickly, too.
I mean, yeah, if you have that guy that can anchor a team, look at a guy like, well, I mean, Luca right away was a force coming into the league, and he's a guy that could had size for his position, could pass, rebound, score. You need a guy that can do it all and be that guy. So, yeah, it's a different era, but you've always needed that guy that can do that. And if not, you need a guy that's close to that level and a guy that's right below him. And the Blazers right now, you're not sure. You're not sure, but that's okay. That is okay. My thought process is this. You need to take as many swings as it takes to find a Bill Walton. There will never be another Bill Walton specifically with the mind of the game, the attitude towards the game, the guy that's out there broadcasting and talking about games in the Pac-12, that's humor and joy of life. You're never going to find an icon like that because that's a kind of a one of a kind human. But as far as talent level goes, this is why it was important if you're wanting to win a championship to go through the draft. You need to find that top level talent guy, or you are not going to win a championship unless you're a perfect storm like the Detroit Pistons. That's why it's always the one example. The Detroit Pistons, and then all the other examples in history, right, of the NBA. So the thing that I'm taking away, which, respect to Bill, rest in peace, you need to find a guy on his level. And I know people don't love tanking, and I don't love it either. And I'm agreeing with what you're saying, Riley, that you do need development even in these tanking years. I want
You
I
said if you think about those like 3 years before they won a championship, though, they were horrendous. The Blazers, they were the
yes.
worst team in the league like 2 or 3 of those years, and that's what led to all those draft picks. So they might have not been tanking necessarily because they were such a new franchise and they just didn't have any of the talent in place. But it took, several years of being dog shit horrendous to get all of those players. The ABA draft seemed like helped a lot. That brought in Maurice Lucas and those sorts of players that already had experience. So I guess maybe you might be able to compare that to more like trading today for or in free agent signings for guys with experience. But I think it did take those bad years to get the draft picks and get maybe get some of the veterans that did stay on the team, like Bill Walton, veteran 3 years. He saw the lean years, and so when it was good, he really took advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and like I was saying, I mean, I didn't even say it. They were major underdogs going in. They were playing Dr. J, right? Like Dr. J was an icon in the league as well. You need that force. You need that top blue chip player. I think that next season is going to be more of the same in terms of wins and losses. But what we need to see, what I would like to see, and what ties in with Riley's point, what ties in with my point, is progress from the young guys to show that you at least have a guy in the echelon, right? You need to see flashes. You want to see some cohesiveness more than we saw this season. I know injuries played a role. Injuries played a role in Bill Walton's time too. Injuries always play a role. You were seeing it in the modern playoffs, how big of an impact injuries have. But I would just like to see some cohesiveness, some growth, because one thing you could say about that 77 team, they played together. And that came with having a conductor in Bill Walton. Bill Walton's the key to that. But you need to find those guys that can play together on a team.
Enforcer on the team, Maurice
Enforcer,
Lucas, the
you
ball
need all the guys.
handler, the shooter, the guys who can go out and guard the other team's best player.
But you need to see what you have now. You need to see flashes, some flashes. You're not going to win and get in the playoffs next season. You need to see flashes from guys, and you need to see people playing together. So the draft is important. And
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of my concern is that I based on what we saw last year, I don't know if we have any of those pieces yet, and so it's like I mean I certainly don't feel like we have our Bill Walton yet. I don't feel like we even really have a great supporting cast for him yet. So I really need to see something change this offseason to show that we're at least moving in that direction.
Like
And
like Colton said earlier, though, it can happen fast. Like it can look real ugly, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and you get that guy on the team, and suddenly the supporting cast looks amazing because they're making plays, contributing towards wins rather than making plays when they're down 20.
look at OKC. They were horrendous two to three seasons ago. They were what the Blazers are now. And they were like, what are we gonna, they had a lot of picks coming up in the future, right? But that's how fast it can happen when you get that Bill Walton level player. So you need to keep taking swings because the Blazers are not going to be able to build in free agency. They're just not a free agent destination. They can move with trades, and that's why they got future
If
mind.
they did get that like Bill Walton type blue chip prospect and they're like suddenly a playoff team, do you think that opens up the opportunity for free agents to look at Portland? That hasn't really happened in the past with particularly Damian Lillard really wasn't able to recruit any high-end free agents. But it seems like if they do get like one of those, like a guy, particularly a big guy who could dominate in certain areas of the game, maybe a free agent or two would want to come, because it does sort of seem like you obviously want to build through the draft and then get a guy or two here or there through trades or through free agencies. Aaron Gordon comes to mind for the Nuggets. Obviously, they built mostly through the draft with Murray and Jokic and MPJ, but they went out and got Gordon, who fit perfectly. Blazers got in that 77 team, had a few sort of ABA vets that they brought in. So I do feel like they're going to have to get the big talent through the draft, but then you can't even really think about it now, and there's no way to target the player that you'd want through trades or free agency because you don't know who the star is going to be, so you don't really know who would complement them yet. But I mean, do you think that that could be a possibility?
I just want to say one thing. If you look at the salary that's on the books, right? The Blazers are kind of right now, they have a lot of roster spots that are full and they have salary, which is fine because they're going to be moving some of these pieces, right? In a couple seasons, when Jeremy Grant's contract would come off the books, the Blazers are only slated to have about 30 million out of a cap of like 170 million. And you're most likely going to give extensions to guys like Scoot and Shaden. My point is, you're going to have some space to maneuver. And if you've got some pieces in place before that, maybe coming from this draft and next draft, those are the two drafts that I think the Blazers are going to, benefit from at least this season and next season. You could bring in a guy like that. You could bring in a big name piece, but it's just going to have to be an attractive, exciting place to play by then, right? You're going to need some pop from your draft picks, and that's kind of your foundation, your floor that you're building the whole thing on. So I think, and you brought it up. I mean, there's not going to be another ABA draft, right? There's not going to be another time where you're bringing the ABA in, but I think the league's also going to look different when expansion happens. Expansion has widely been rumored. That's going to be an interesting time where some teams might get weaker. The league it could look a whole lot different during that process because teams have to protect certain players on their roster. So, if we can only protect 6 guys or whatever the ruling is,
I
that could
feel
even
like
benefit the Blazers.
I feel like OKC could be screwed in that kind of a scenario because they're so deep. Like, who do we protect here? There's a few
Exactly.
teams out there that are kind of in a situation like that would get penalized for depth, which is interesting.
Yeah. And the Blazers are during a rebuilding time. I mean, they could lose a young guy, but if they're just now setting their stud pieces, this could help bridge the gap. So it's not the ABA draft, but it's something that could be league changing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That would be an interesting development for sure. It seems like a good time for that to happen to the Blazers, honestly.
We should talk
If
about who we would protect in an
yeah.
expansion in a future video.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't have a hard time. There's 3 more guys we could easily lose, based on our current roster. I'm not really seeing a whole lot that I feel like we must protect for the future. But
So
there's a
so
few guys.
Riley, what do you want to see this offseason for that 1973, 1974, like 3 years out from a championship offseason? What would you want to see from the current Blazers?
I want to see
Outside of the
Scoot,
draft.
and I want to see Shaden in a gym on Instagram in May or early June, not on vacation, trying to become elite players because I don't think they're anywhere near it. I honestly, I sounds kind of like I'm kidding, but I'm kind of not. I want like player only. Like we got together without the coaching staff because we freaking sucked last year, and we're gonna woodshed until we're better. That's what I want to see. I want to see somebody step up as a leader and someone to make some sacrifices and become someone that everybody can look up to, because I didn't feel like anybody on that team was worth looking up to last year.
Colton, same question to you. What do you want to see?
I mean, you definitely want to see in the gym. You definitely want to see that. I want to see from this is Joe Cronin. I want to see a direction chosen. Do you go full, go full on board with the youth movement? Give the guys the runway to give them those years to develop. You can't develop when you have Brogdon and Simons and all these guys that need minutes. You need to play. You need to play 30 minutes a night. You got to play through your mistakes. So I think Joe needs to kind of move a direction. Don't do two timelines for another off season. Give the guys a chance to develop and show that maybe they are blue chip pieces, and you might have somebody in the realm that you just don't even know is
Could be
Walton
that.
level.
Yeah, could be that next Bill Walton level player, or maybe they're coming. Maybe they're in the pipeline. Cooper Flag,
Capture the
another
flag.
big
Next
white
season's
guy.
draft. I just want to say it again to everybody. Anybody who watches these videos, really, next season's draft apparently is very eye-popping. I know you don't want to keep doing next year's draft, but there's high level, big wing prospects, multiple that are sitting there. I've seen as many as like 5 that are all wings that are very good. So give it one more year, make it a development year. Don't make it a tank year. Make it a development year where you're actually seeing the young guys play 60 games together, 70 games together. Don't have veterans out there and
I,
bench the
s-
veteran. Just play
yeah,
the
I
young.
still don't feel like even if they're that talented and they're building code, they're still not gonna win
No,
35 games, The
they're going to be last in the West probably. Again, look at the West. Spurs are not going to be as bad. Spurs are going to get better. Everybody's going to get better. Maybe Utah if they pull the cord.
but that development is, I think that's key. I think that's what we all want to see, those guys. And then yeah, hopefully the draft will this year and next year will help them out.
Yes.
Bring some complimentary player, some complimentary guys to those roles. And yeah. All right.
I gotta do my part here, as an advocate for
Oh
Portland,
boy.
because I understand this whole like we
Oh
can't
boy.
get free agents in Portland thing has been a thing my whole lifetime. But you guys are getting people to go to Milwaukee. You guys are getting people to go to Denver and freaking Phoenix, Arizona. Are you kidding me? Come to Portland. I'll show you outside the window right now. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful state. I don't know why we have so much trouble getting people to come here when they'll
It
go to
rains.
Milwaukee. You think it rains more here than it does in Milwaukee? Come on.
It rains in the high income tax. Those are the two things.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different. We're not in the right tax bracket to notice the negative effects of the taxes, but also, there are a lot of clubs in Portland. James
Come to
Harden.
Portland and pay for our roads, please.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
Just
right,
leave
yeah.
Milwaukee.
R.I.P. Bill Walton. Wanted to make sure we shouted him out. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.